All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Learn Athletic Live number 4. Tonight, we're going to talk about image export, and specifically, how you can automatically export finish line images from finish links as you mark times. My name is Ben Thomas. I am the creator of Athletic Live, and I'll be hosting the webinar tonight. Also with us, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A on Zoom. And we have two moderators tonight, Dan Bedoin and Graham Dudick of Athletic Timing. They've used this feature a lot, so if you have any questions while we're going in the webinar, while I'm talking, feel free to use that Q&A feature, and they'll be more than happy to answer your questions. And this is our 4th webinar, so if you haven't seen any other webinars yet, definitely please take a look at this link, help.athletic.live/timers/learn-athletic-live. Should be in the Zoom chat, but the other recordings of all our other webinars are there. So, image export. There's a lot to talk about tonight. The first thing, we're going to kind of deal with the elephant in the room first, which is really what are finish line images, and are they going to cause me as a timer a lot of grief because of extra complaints because people can see these finish line images that up until now only I could see. And certainly understand the hesitancy there, especially when you first think about this. But we'll take a look at some numbers and explain why we think it's worth your while, and just talk about a couple considerations that you can do. Some simple things to really prevent anything untoward from happening. Obviously, a coach can get mad about anything. This is just another tool they could use, but from our experience, that really hasn't manifested itself. So we'll talk about that. In order to do image export, you need to download our middleware program, AthleticLIVE Local. That needs to be on one of your computers internal to your network. And there's also a few other benefits of using that middleware program, and we'll briefly touch on that today. We'll also take a look at the settings. There's really 3 steps to this process, this image export process, and there are some settings such as how do you know which camera you're pulling the image from? How do we know how big the image needs to be? When do they get generated? We'll talk about how you can control some of those variables and really just how all of it works. Once we take a look at those settings, we'll then generate some test images. So within AthleticLIVE Local, it's really easy for you to test, make sure things look good, tweak some settings, try a few different things, and figure out what works for you. And lastly, we'll watch it happen. We'll take a look at the Portland 5000. It was a night track meet done last September to try and get some guys some Olympic qualifying standards. We've got that finish links file, so we'll use that as our example tonight. And to do everything we talk about today, you'll need AthleticLIVE Local. We'll go over how to get that in just a minute. You'll want to have finish links 10.11 or greater, and that includes the remote control plugin, which you'll need to do this. And your AthleticLIVE account needs to be enabled for image export. So if you need that, just shoot me an email and I'll flip that switch on. And we've got a lot of talking about setting things up. But when we do get to the point where we show image export working, this will be the link, anet.live/learn4, and it should be in the Zoom chat as well. All right, so what are finish line images? Here is an example of a finish line image taken at New Balance Nationals in 2019, the girls' 1 mile championship. And it was a race separated by, I believe it ended up being 0.003 of a second. So this is what someone sees on the live scoreboard, really within 5 to 10 seconds of that finish happening. They're seeing this image taken directly from finish links. And on every image that gets uploaded, we do provide a what is this photo, just as sort of an intro to somebody who's wondering where this photo comes from. And when you talk about, well, why do the legs look weird, or why does it not look like a photo I would take on my iPhone? These 2 links help explain that. And funny enough, this particular photo elicited no complaints from coaches. Of course, the timers put a lot of work into making sure it's right. I believe they even waited to click until they were sure with what they were going with. But this photo does illustrate the question we'll talk about next, is Is this going to cause extra complaints for me? Is it going to be more trouble than it's worth? So if we take a look at the numbers, there have been about 120,000 images generated over 250 track meets since we launched this functionality about 1.5 years ago. And I've not heard any issues, or I'm sure there have been, you know, I'm sure there's always something for a coach to talk about. But none of it's bubbled up to me or to any of our staff where you know, it's been reported that this is causing a problem at track meets. Most people seem to like it a lot. And the guys at Athletic Timing, they've exported over 35,000 images at around 136 meets, and there was only one noticeable complaint, which came from a parent who said, looks like my kid's shoes in front of the other kid. Shouldn't they win? And they took the opportunity to explain, of course, that the torso is what matters, and that parent then never replied back. So take that as an opportunity for learning. So, I mean, based on those numbers, the lack of complaints that I've received, you know, I think people view it as just another tool of live results. It's always been AthleticLIVE's mission to get as much data off the meet management machines as possible. Started with just live results, and then we've brought out real-time finish line results, real-time field results. Really, all of this data that's made available to anybody could theoretically allow a coach to more easily complain. And this image is just another piece of that. But I would argue that having more transparency with these images is a good thing. Our sport's better when people know what's happening. And I think in the example of the woman who wrote about, you know, why is my kid behind when her foot's in front? If a kid learns that because of these images, it may, you know, helps them learn about the sport. It helps them know that they should lean instead of kicking, and not to give up at the finish line. It also produces some pretty cool social media photos, as we see over here. This one did get shared quite a bit on social media just because it was so close, and of course someone's falling there. And really, all major sports have instant replay, and you know, at big professional meets, they show these things right after people cross the line. I think it's just a matter of making sure that everybody's on the same page. You know, the timing staff knows what's going on. And the meet director knows what's going on, which leads me to a couple considerations. So yes, it's cool, but there's, you know, a couple simple things you can do just to make sure, just to alleviate any surprises on meet day. We'll talk about how you can show both line scan images and Identilinks images. It may be useful just to show Identilinks images, so that way someone doesn't have, you know, someone can't come up and show a line scan image. But you'll see that, you know, when we get into this, you'll see what both look like, and may be a consideration for you, may not, and it also may depend on the meet too. Maybe a regular invite, you're fine doing line scan, but a big state meet, maybe you want to do Identilinks. The option's there for you. And just making sure the meet director and timing staff know what's going on, know that these images are being exported immediately. That'll definitely help, because if someone comes and has an issue to raise, it's not like people are unprepared that this person's already got you know, part of the finish line image. And to be fair, it does give coaches an extra tool to appeal, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because our goal is to get the results right. The lines, as you'll see, the lines that you make in finish links don't show up on these images. It's simply an image. So they're not seeing the line that you as the timer decide. So they can't really, you know, they can't say, well, I think this line needs to be moved a centimeter back. It's really just the image. It's meant just to communicate what happened. It's not trying to, you know, prove. It's not trying to prove that you've put the line in the right place. So as we, you know, I think, you know, the concern is warranted, and you as the timer, of course, will have to make that decision for yourself. But I hope with what we described today, and as we show how it works, that it's something you'll consider at a future meet. So let's go ahead and get into the nitty gritty. How does it work? So most of this webinar is going to be an initial setup process. Steps 1 and 2 are really just getting things set up for the first time. And once you set them up for the first time, it's pretty easy just to flip a switch for the most part and turn it on. So there's really 3 steps to this process, and we'll go through each in depth. The first step is we need finish links to tell Athletic Live Local that there's a new result for a finish link score or via a finish link scoreboard. So when we talk about step one, we'll download Athletic Live Local, get that set up on our computer, and also set up a finish link scoreboard so we can send data from finish links to Athletic Live Local. Then we'll jump into a lot of these settings. So once Athletic Live Local knows that there's a new result, it needs to communicate with finish links via the remote control plugin to tell finish links to generate an image. And we'll talk about all the different things you can do with that. And once finish links gets that command, it then needs to create the image. And once the image is created, Athletic Live Local will upload it. So let's take a look at step one first. So first thing we're going to do is install Athletic Live Local. So let me get out of presentation here. And we'll head over to the help.athletic.live, which is our repository of all Athletic Live help documentation. We scroll all the way to the bottom, we'll get to Athletic Live Local. And let me just give a brief summary of what this program does, because it does do a lot more than just act as middleware for sending images to Athletic Live. So if you've ever used Athletic Live before, or you've watched our previous videos, you'll know that when you create a meet, we provide credentials that allow you to connect your meet management systems and your FAT systems with Athletic Live. Every meet, you're going to have to enter a username and password into HiTech or Meet Pro or your meet management system of choice. And every meet, you're going to have to enter some kind of credential. That's typically a port number into finish links or your FAT system of choice. And if you were using field links or some kind of field results management system, which we'll go over in a future webinar, same thing. You've got to enter this in for every meet, which is fine if you're doing 1 meet a week. You know, you're not doing it that often, but if you're doing more than that, especially in the busy times, it could get kind of annoying to enter that port in every time. And secondly, there may be use cases where you want to have some of these devices off of the internet. So maybe you want to keep your finish links machine off of the internet. With this, you can send data from finish links to, or you can send, doing this allows you to keep finish links off the internet as described in this, this graph here. So instead of finish links sending data directly to Athletic Live on the internet, it can send locally to Athletic Live Local, and then Athletic Live Local can forward that on to the internet. Same with HiTech, same with other devices that you have. So it eliminates having to have all these extra devices on the internet and prevents you from having to enter in different usernames or ports every time. So this is all a little outside the scope of image export. We will show how it works with finish links a little later, but just want to get across that this middleware program is useful if you're going to be timing more than 1 meet a week. It can help speed up your time, or it can help speed up your setup process. So let's go ahead and download this and install it. Most likely you're on a 64-bit computer, but we do offer a 32-bit version if you have that. So you just click on this, and it may ask for authentication. It may ask for you to request for access to download. If so, just click request for access and you'll be approved pretty quickly. I'll go ahead and download this. And once it downloads, go ahead and click on it to install it. You may get this note that Microsoft Defender Smart Screen has prevented an unrecognized app from starting. That's okay. Just click on More Info, click on Run Anyway. Going to go through a typical Windows setup process. Click on Finish. Once you do that, you should have a desktop shortcut. So go ahead and click on that. Once you do that, it's going to open up a window here and just say, welcome to Athletic Live Local. And to access Athletic Live Local, you're going to open your browser and go to localhost 8150. So I'll go ahead and do that here. It's It's going to log in with my Athletic.net credentials, and this is the AthleticLIVE local dashboard. All right, so we've downloaded it, we've installed it, and we'll come back to this in step 2. The important part is that we've got this installed. The other piece that's important when we talk about telling AthleticLIVE local we have a new result is creating a Finish Links scoreboard to send data to AthleticLIVE local. So let's go ahead and open Finish Links and add that scoreboard. All right, so I'll go to scoreboard options, scroll to the bottom, click on new, and this scoreboard information here, if we go back to help.athletic.live and head to Finish Links image export, this is the documentation that essentially mirrors what we're going over today. And this documentation will give you the information to configure the scoreboard right here. So I'll go ahead and enter this information in. So we're going to do network connect. So in this case with this demo, Finish Links and AthleticLIVE local are on the same computer. If they were on different computers, I would use the local IP address of the AthleticLIVE local computer right here. Because they're on the same computer, I'm just going to use localhost 127.0.0.1. And we can use whatever port number we want. We'll define that in step 2. The default that we like to use is 6600. I'm just going to go ahead and do that. We're not doing running time. I want to set results to auto, turn paging off, and importantly, make sure always send place is checked. I'm just going to name this one ALive image generation. All right. And then there is also an LSS file you need, which is in that help document, this ALive image gen.lss. Just take a quick peek here, compare with what's here, and connect 6600 auto, looking good. So I'll go ahead and save this and close out of Finish Links. We'll come back to Finish Links in a minute. All right, so that's step 1. Both of those things you're only doing one time, setting up that scoreboard once, downloading AthleticLIVE local once. So how does AthleticLIVE local go about asking Finish Links to generate an image? We've got a couple things that we need to set up. So first of all, when you create a meet, and I've already got this test meet created, this is the one that's linked to with anet.live/learn4. Click on edit. And if I go to the very bottom of this form, there is a checkbox, export links images and shown results. If you don't see it, it's just because it's not enabled for your account. Feel free to email me at ben@athletic.net. I'll be happy to enable that for you. So we've already got this set up, so we're good to go. Click Save Meet. Now we need to define our settings. So to get to my account and my settings, I go to ben@athletic.net, click this, and click My Account. And I've already got an image export configuration here, but if I did not, there would be a link here that says just you can add one. For the sake of our demonstration here, I'll just go ahead and edit the one that I have. All right, so these are our settings. So first, do we want to use this? Yes, we do. Our first one here is image directory. So regardless of whether Finish Links is being used on the same computer as AthleticLIVE local, you do want to map a network drive to the directory defined in Finish Links in, I'll show you here, File, Options, Database, Output Directory. This is the directory where Finish Links is going to export all of its images. In our case, we've already got this network drive mapped to Z, and I highly encourage that you do a network drive for this. It can be a little buggy if you've got a directory with folders, especially a lot of folders. This just helps to eliminate that issue. So we've already got a Z drive here. I go to this PC, Z, and this contains just some meet information that we have. Got that set, Z colon with the backslash. We're all set there. The local port. So when we created that scoreboard in Finish Links, we elected to send this scoreboard info to port 6600. We're also going to set that same number right here. So when we start our image export process in Athletic Live Local, it's going to be listening on port 6600. So these two need to match. These next two here involve step 2, which is Athletic Live Local asking Finish Links to generate an image. Well, Athletic Live Local needs to know where to do that. So once again, because Finish Links and Athletic Live Local in this case are on the same computer, we're going to use the alias for localhost 127.0.0.1. If you had Athletic Live Local on a different machine than Finish Links, you just need to find out what Finish Links' internal IP is. The Finish Links remote control port. So in Finish Links, you need to enable the remote control plugin and allow it to listen on a particular port. Athletic Live Local will communicate on that port to ask Finish Links to generate images. To do that, go to File, Options, and right here under Remote Control, you'll change this to Network Listen and set the port number to the port number that you define here. In our case, we like to do 7100 as a default, so I'll go ahead and type that in here. And I do recommend, after doing this for the first time, to restart Finish Links. So I'm going to go ahead and close it here. All right, so we've got our connection info straight. We're saving to the Z drive because that's the directory that that's the output directory in Finish Links. We're sending to Athletic Live Local from Finish Links on port 6600, and then Athletic Live Local's talking back to Finish Links over 127.0.0.1 and port 7100. So let's go ahead, now that we have our connection straight, let's talk about how you can define what images you want to export. So we have two different kinds of images. The first is an athlete image. This is an image like we saw right here, where it's taking one particular person and generating an image for them. So it's going to be not terribly wide and just show one person or whoever's around them. It's focused on one person. It's centered on one person. We also have top finisher images. These are really popular for sprint events. So 100, if it's a 100-meter dash, you want to see all the finishers in one succinct image. This is going to take an image of all of them. So this is the image you might see like at any track meet on TV. They're going to give you this finisher image and show everybody as they came in. So we'll take a look at both of these. And there's some considerations, and you might want to do things a little bit differently for them. Let's talk about the athlete image first. So there's really two things you need to be concerned about. One is the window number, and the other is the window area. So what's a window number? Well, the window number is how we decide which camera we're going to take an image from. So let's take a look here. If you're using any of the 6 default layouts in Finish Links, so when I say default layouts, what I mean is if we go to Event, Options, any of these 6 layouts right here, and you haven't customized anything, then the numbers that you would use are if it's in left, it's window 1. If it's in right, it's window 2, and if it's in the bottom, it's window 3. And just to a little more clearly illustrate what I mean by that, if I open today's event, I see 2 cameras here. If I right-click here, we'll see that this is left, so this means it's window 1. I right-click here, this is right. That means it's window 2. And if I were to also put this one on the bottom, we could export from here as window 3. And those numbers, as long as you're using any of those layouts, those numbers would be the same. If you have customized your own layout, you just need to know which image number, you need to define what image number that is. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to look at that with you on your custom layouts. So in our case, for our athlete image, we want to go ahead and use the identalinks. So this is on the right, it's window number 2. So I'll go ahead and type in 2 right here. Now, since this is the Identilinks, we're going to use this Identilinks window area field. We have both an Identilinks and a line scan window area because when AthleticLIVE asks for an image, it first checks to see whether the window is showing an Identilinks camera or a line scan camera, and then uses the appropriate window area. So what is window area? Let me present this here. All right, so I do recommend if you want, I'm going to gloss over this because it is a little complicated, but if you want to know more about this and how to define the area of an image, there's some remote control plugin documentation on FinishLinks. It does a really good job of explaining this. But just as simple as I can describe it, we see the FinishLinks image that we were just looking at, where there's a line scan on the left-hand side, and there's an Identilinks on the right-hand side. There's four entries that are comma separated, and they mean from the crosshair. So right here, what's circled in blue here is our crosshair. From the crosshair, we want to go minus 200R, which for our intents and purposes is pretty much pixels. It's pixels. Then top, we want to go minus 100%. Right, we want to go 200R, it's positive 200. And then bottom, 100%. And what that's doing is it's telling us that to the left, we want to go 200 pixels out. So from where I clicked, which is going to be right on the torso, I want 200 pixels to the left, 200 pixels to the right. I want to go all the way to the top of the image and all the way to the bottom of the image. And when we get to testing these values out, you'll see that it's pretty easy for you to go in and change these values and try a bunch of things. But this is, from the experience we've had so far, this seems to be a pretty good default. You're getting a little bit in front of the runner, a little bit behind the runner, and the entire height of the camera to make sure you're catching all the runner. This is the image that gets generated when we use these values. Now the Identilinks is a little bit different because we want to capture the entire image. If we tried to capture the entire image here, this is a 5K. It's got, and it's also got 12 splits, or 13 splits. So this image would be absolutely massive and would be of no use to anybody. So the line scan is different than the Identilinks. The Identilinks, a little hard to see there with the blue, but I'll go back and just show you right here. So the top and the left are minus 100, and the bottom and the right are plus 100. So once again, if you want more info on exactly how that works and what those numbers mean, check out that remote control plugin documentation. But for the purposes of what we're doing today, just know that these are both really good defaults and they'll serve you well, and you have the opportunity to customize if you feel like playing around with it. So because this is an athlete image and we're using the Identilinks, this is the window area that this is the window area we'll use, and we'll go ahead and leave that set as the default. For our top finisher image configuration, we're going to make sure to have it checked here that just says that we're going to generate them. And these checkboxes are important because if for some reason you only wanted to generate event images, maybe because your concerns about generating athlete images just overweigh the benefits, but you still want to generate some images, you can only use this one if you like, or conversely, you can only do athlete images. For our demo today, we'll do both. But for our top finisher images, we want to use the line scan. So we'll use window number 1 because in FinishLinks, our line scan's on the left. So we're going to look at the line scan window area. So note, this is slightly different than the athlete image. We actually, instead of going 200 pixels back, go 2,000 pixels back. So that gives us a very wide berth when we generate that event image. If it's generating an image for something like 100, where the image itself is maybe only 900 pixels wide, it'll only go back as far as the image. So it won't generate an image with a bunch of empty space in it. But the idea here is we're trying to accommodate both the small races and maybe something like 800 or 1600, where maybe this isn't quite as useful as you might find it for 100 or 200, but it's still allowing, it's still providing a good image. You're still seeing people as they come by, and maybe you'll get some close finishes in there. So we've got our defaults set. So once we set these defaults here in the AthleticLIVE admin, for the most part, you won't need to change them. These ports are probably not going to change. All this information here, these settings, they probably won't change, especially once you have tested them out and decide that you like them. So we'll go ahead and save it there. So we've got our configurations, and that is step 2. So we have, let's take a look at this graphic. We've got finish links set up to tell AthleticLIVE Local that we've got new results. We have prepared AthleticLIVE Local to send that data to finish links. And now we're just about ready for step 3, which ties it all together. So let's head back into AthleticLIVE Local. And there is, right before we do the image export test, I do just briefly want to show why AthleticLIVE Local can be valuable for speeding up your setup process by not having to change your port every time. So what I mean by that is when we go to our meet, we've got our port number right here and our IP address. And that's already set up in finish links for this meet. Got that right here. But instead of having to change, say this was set for another meet, instead of having to change it, if we scroll down in AthleticLIVE Local, we'll see that there's a defined port for results and for running time. And I'm just going to go ahead and set those up before we start sending data to AthleticLIVE tonight so you can see that it works. So in the same vein as image export, because finish links and AthleticLIVE Local exist on the same computer, the IP address here we're going to change. Instead of sending it online to AthleticLIVE Local, we're going to go ahead and change it to localhost and port 3150. So now instead of sending online, this finish links data is going to send to AthleticLIVE Local and then up to AthleticLIVE. Same here for the runtime. We'll set it to 127.0.0.1 and 53. We'll click OK. Just a quick brief interlude there before we start sending data. Just want to show how AthleticLIVE can be useful in other ways. All right, so now we're getting to what you might do on the day of the meet. So when you come into AthleticLIVE Local, we see this big warning right here. Warning, no active meet. So we need to select a meet in order to start sending data from AthleticLIVE Local to it. So we'll click here on Choose Active Meet. And we've got our test image export meet. That's the one that we have. Yep, it's this one right here, test image export meet. And we'll click Submit. What this is going to do is start up a few processes so that we're going to be listening for finish links data, for high-tech data, and it's going to bring down any image export configurations that we have. So these are all the configs that we set online. So how can we quickly make sure that this works? Because we've just defined a bunch of settings. How do we really know that when I click this start button that it's going to do anything? Well, we've added some test functionality here so you can be sure that everything works pretty well before you get started. So we'll click on test right here. We've got our finish links open right here. So let's go ahead and test an athlete image first. So looks like the winner here, right around 1258.099. So let's go ahead and we have our export being tested. These are all our settings. And it's going to say, do you want to do an athlete image or an event image? In our case, we're just going to say that we want to do a athlete image. And here's where we see if I set everything up right. Click Submit. And OK, this is good. So this is telling us here that it's generated an image. And if we take a look at our Z drive, sort by date modified, we'll see that there's an image right here. So I could click on this to open it, or we also get the local link right here. Most browsers nowadays don't let you do links to local files, but you can either go to Z Drive and find it, or you can copy this and put it into your browser, open it, and there's our image that was generated. So looks to me like probably the Identity settings are good. We know that this is what the athlete image is going to generate for that given time. And just as an example, let's say that we decided that today we wanted to do line scan images instead of Identity images. I could go to Edit. I could change this to window number 1. So it's going to grab from the left as opposed to the right. Save this. It's going to bring me back to the test page. And once again, I'll type that time in. So this is important here because when I define this time, finish links is essentially just going in, finding that exact time. So 090 is about right there. And it's going to generate the image from this crosshair 200 pixels back, 200 pixels back, and 200 pixels forward. So when I click on submit, it's going to give me an image. Bring that up here. We see that that's now generating a line scan image. So just as another thought experiment, say maybe 200 pixels, you think that's a little too big. And this can certainly depend on your frame rate. This is 1,000, but if you're doing a sprint event and you're at 1,600, it may be a little bit different because you've got more data there. Just something to play with. The 200 back and forth is a good it's a good preset, but you may find for your use case that you may need a little more or a little less. For this example, let's just change it to 100. So athlete image, change this to 100, click submit, do another one, grab that image. You can see it's a lot shorter than that. So you can imagine there's a lot of configuration playing around you can do there. But for our test today, we do want to make that an Identilinks. So I'm going to go ahead and change that back to 2. So let's take a look at an event image. So the event image is going to get generated automatically as soon as you have filled in every single time or status. So the event image will happen in this case once all 6 of these people have times, because these 2 guys down here are already DNF. And it's going to take it from the winner's time. So when I'm testing it, I want to test it from the winner's time. So once again, we'll type in 12:58:09, click submit. And this time I'll go ahead and take a look at my Z drive directly. So here's my event image, open that. See, that's pretty long. Got a pretty long image right there. Let's say you wanted to shorten that up a little bit. Same thing, go to edit, change this to 1,000, submit, do this again. And we're going to have a much shorter image there. But once again, for our cases today, we do want to stick with that default. So I'll change this back to 2,000. All right, so looks like everything's working. The most common things that happen if something's not working, make sure you have finish links on before you open AthleticLIVE Local. Finish links needs to be open so it can start receiving data. Other things are, sometimes the ports are incorrect, especially your first time. Sometimes it's easy to forget to set that remote control port. But if you've got everything working, this is working well, you're all set to go. And if you run into any issues, just shoot me an email. I'm sure we can figure it out. So now, how does this all start? So we're all set to go. The meet's about to begin. Let's head back to our dashboard here. And you do need to click the restart button. So go ahead and click that. Once it starts, it could take 4 or 5 seconds. We're going to see that it's now online. And I go back to the dashboard, it'll also show up as online. So we're good to go. So let me go ahead here and head to our meet. And as we see, we're already all set here. We're already seeing data from finish links. And don't forget, we changed the credentials in the scoreboard so that it would point to AthleticLIVE Local, so that now that data is being forwarded directly into AthleticLIVE Local instead of onto the internet directly. So let's go ahead and get some images in. So this is the finisher, so I'll click him. Let's get another one here. Other one. Cool. So we see an image right here. So sometimes these can be slightly delayed, but if we take a look here, we'll see that's the Identilinks image. And they will refresh every time that you click someone. So if you click someone and don't click someone for 20 seconds, you're not going to see that right there. It will only show up as soon as you click somebody else. So let me go ahead and mark the rest of these finishers here. Okay, cool. So we got 4 of these. Looks like something happened with these. Let me see if they got generated. Oops. Change that back. Okay. Looks like they all got generated, but there was just something probably on my machine with maybe not the best of internet and a bunch of stuff running that just these did not make it online for some reason. So they got generated, they didn't get online. At this point, we do not have a way to push these up once they go, once they're done, but that is something we're working on because this can happen on occasion. And just my thoughts, maybe at the end of the meet, just throw them up somewhere, throw them up into a directory somewhere and upload it. But for this example here, we did get 4 of them online. We can click and we can see that it's different people. And once again, there's if someone's wondering what this is, they can click here and get some more information on it. So if I click save, the last thing to do is look at the event image. So that event image will come as soon as we upload final results from our meet management system. It can be high-tech or Meet Pro, whatever you're using. So I'm just going to go in here and upload final results. I've already got them pulled in here. Head back to the home page, wait for our update to come that the results have been uploaded. Just give it a second here. Cool, here we go. So if I click here, we'll see, in this case, so we did get these 2 images here. So sometimes it's just that live scoreboard. It doesn't necessarily always get every single one, but when you do upload finish line images, or when you do upload final results, a lot of times they'll come in here. So we can see that finisher photo that we've seen a couple times today. And last but not least, to see those heat images, you can click on the photo finish tab, and there will be a tab here for every single heat, so we can see that finish line image that got generated there. So as you can imagine, if you've got 25 heats of the 100, this can be pretty cool here to just sift through these and just take a peek at which ones might have some close finishes. And if you want to take a look at a meet that's got a lot of these, definitely you can take a look at New Balance Nationals back in 2015, or back in 2019, excuse me. Most of these have finish line images, and then lots of athletic timing meets do, and there are a number of other timers that have used it as well. So there's lots of examples to see how these look amongst live results. All right, so that sums up our demonstration for today. There's a lot of information there, but most of it is just set up on your first time. If everything's working once with all your ports, your images, or your ports, your configuration, your settings, you should just be able to turn it on in Athletic Live Local and have images start uploading. At the end of these slides today, we do have some links here. These top two are some documentation that we've already written. This just explains really what we talked about today with image export. And we've also got a day of meet checklist. So this can be helpful on your first time. This can be helpful just to have a few times when you're setting up to make sure you get the process down. I've also got a link to download Athletic Live Local here. This explains what Athletic Live Local is, gives you links to download it. And then I spoke briefly, specifically when it was about window numbers and area, defining how we're getting that data from Finish Link, how we're telling Finish Links what images to export. This is the documentation Finish Links wrote that explains how that area, how area and window numbers work. So if you're interested in a deeper dive, I'd recommend that. We've also decided to add 2 webinars to the schedule, to this set of Learn Athletic Live webinars. So next Wednesday, we'll be talking about how to do field scoreboards with field links. So as people are as your officials are in the field marking results in field links, how that gets up to Athletic Live. And then on June 3rd, we'll talk about how to do cross-country scoreboards from Finish Links. So that ends the webinar today. I'll go ahead and take a look at any questions that may have come in that Dan and Graham have answered and just see if there's any value in talking about those in the video portion of this webinar. Yeah, great question. So if you're judging the image and you misclick an athlete or lane, when you correct it, the new image will override the previous image. Yes, it will. Yes, so if you miss something, it'll get re-uploaded. Another good question, if your orientation changes, will you change the negative and positive signs? Yes, for left and right. So as an example, there's actually a really good one to play with. There's a sample sprint event that Links comes with. So let me find it here. You got to go to C drive and Links, sprint. So this has got one camera going left. This has got one camera going right. So in my examples today, I believe the camera was heading left. Double check that. Yeah, the camera was heading left. So if your camera's heading right, there could be some slight differences. So I would use that example to make sure that you have your negative and positive signs going correctly. Great point there. Another good question, if you want to use one camera for sprints and a second camera for distance, is that possible automatically? And yeah, that's correct. That's not possible at the moment. You would have to go in and change your image export settings. So let's say you wanted to have sprints export you wanted to change the area for sprints and change the area for distance. You have to, at this moment, do that in between events. But it sounds like a really good new feature to add on at some point here. Okay, good question here. Can the whole event image display even if not all places have been judged? So what if it is a non-seeded meet so no athletes are initially loaded? Yeah, this is only going to work for seeded meets right now. And another thing I should have mentioned, the athletes all do need to have IDs as well. And I'll update the slides to reflect that. But if you read the documentation, it does mention that. So yeah, this does need to be a seeded meet. The athletes do need to have ID numbers from your meet management system. and you do have to evaluate every person before the image event display does happen. And part of the reason for that is there actually is a very slight amount of blocking time whenever you create an image. You'll see here that when you generate an image, there's a green bar right here that will actually block you from clicking and finish links. But when you generate one image, it's so fast that you don't even notice it. And see if I can do a quick example of that here. If we go into Athletic Live Local, stop this. And let's do a test image. So take a look right there. When I attempt to export this, there's some blocking time. So while that green bar is going, I can't click anything in here. So we take great pains to ensure that only one image is getting generated at a time. So if you were to open this right now, no images would get generated. If there was another result, it would then get generated. We try really hard to ensure that only one image is getting generated at once, so you never get blocked while you're working. All right. So the question here: if the crosshair is not near their chest, would that cut off the runner's head in the image? So it's a good question. So if you're using our defaults, that would not be a problem because, let me head to the right screen here. In our area, we have the top set to -100 and the bottom set to 100. So we're always going to get the full height of the image. If you were to do something like -80 or -50, it's possible that it could get cut off. But as long as you have the top set to -100, the bottom set to 100, and the athlete actually shows up in the image, you're going to get that full image of the athlete. Great question. Another question, does the image transfer freeze up the computer? I've not experienced that. And like I said, because of the precautions that we take in Athletic Live Local to only ever generate one image at a time, your links shouldn't lock up either. But I've not had any reports of image transfer completely freezing up links or the computer. Not to say that it couldn't happen, because stuff happens, but we haven't experienced it yet. Oh, and a good point here. So yeah, the reason my first image didn't come through is I'd already created it in testing. That's why it didn't show up on the live scoreboard. Thanks for pointing that out. All right. Well, I hope this has been some good information for everybody today. And maybe if you are on the fence about doing image export for your next meet, whenever that may be, I hope you'll think about giving it a try. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at ben@athletic.net. I'd be more than happy to chat with you about it. Thank you all very much, and have a great rest of the night.